Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. If you remember, a couple of segments ago, I brought in a bamboo saxophone, and I was also talking about reeds and mouthpieces and how the reeds vibrate against the mouthpieces and how some instruments are double reeded and the reeds vibrate against each other. And I brought in a bamboo saxophone, and I showed you the saxophone, and the mouthpiece was carved into the saxophone, and that was one example of a mouthpiece. Well, I brought in another instrument today that has that same thing. This happens to be a zaphoon. Yes, that's how it's pronounced. It's a zaphoon, sometimes called a Hawaiian saxophone. It is a Hawaiian instrument. And it has the same kind of arrangement of having the mouthpiece carved into it. And I'm going to show that to you in a minute. But this instrument is supposed to be small enough so you can stick it in a pocket. And when it was advertised, I got it from a company that makes unusual instruments and sells unusual instruments. It said that it's a saxophone, a Hawaiian saxophone, and you can stick it in your pocket, and then when you go out on a hike or you're climbing a mountain or something, if you want to take a break, sit down and rest, just pull this out of your pocket and play it. It's portable, you can take it anywhere. Well, it is kind of small when you look at an instrument in comparison to the larger instruments, but it's really too big to go in somebody's pocket. But this is a zaphoon, and it has the same kind of arrangement where the mouthpiece has been carved into it. So I'm going to take the cap off, and you can see the mouthpiece. Let me just put this down. And this is the mouthpiece, and there is a reed attached. And the reed is actually a berry reed, called a berry reed. Now, you use them on regular saxophones, either tenors. Yeah, that's really good. You can use them in tenors or alto saxophones. They're clear plastic. And I remember when I showed it to you, I need to take this off. When I showed it to you, it looked like it was gray. But against a certain background, you can see that this is a clear reed, and you can see through it. And it looks like a reed, it acts like a reed, it vibrates, but it's pure plastic. And the thing that makes that interesting is that they're harder to play than a regular reed, but they last forever. I mean, I could play it for 25 years. Now, this is the mouthpiece without the reed on it. It's clearly carved into the instrument, and you have the ligature right here. They're very, very difficult to play, and the reason is there's absolutely no adjustment. This is bamboo, and I'm going to get into bamboo instruments and wooden instruments in this segment. I can undo this ligature by just unscrewing it. I don't want to take it off because it's very hard to get it on and off. It's built to be permanent, so I keep it on. I unscrew it, slip the reed in, and then re-screw it. But you can see how this is as I turn it. This is the whole mouthpiece, and it's solid. It's carved right in, and the ligature has the screws in the front. And then if I turn it to the side, you see it like that. There's there's no adjustment. I was going to say there's very little adjustment, but there's no adjustment. And then there is that tone hole in the back, like a recorder has, right here. And then if I turn it all the way around, you can see clearly the finger holes. And you notice that those finger holes are about the same size, but they're not even. They're not one directly under the other. There's a lot more variation. I'm going to put it toward the side, and you'll be able to see. That's really good right there. You'll be able to see how those finger holes are. The last four are pretty much even, but when you get to the top ones, they're not in line with each other. But what they tried to do is to accommodate your hands. Now, this is not an easy instrument to play. The tone hole in the back, you put your thumb over. But then you got your top key, your top hole right here, right below the mouthpiece. And then the second one is way down here. And you've got a terrible stretch with your fingers, and then below that, the stretches are very hard Okay, so if I use just my right hand, that's not so bad, but the left hand is very hard to manage. It's not an easy instrument to play. It does work. It does even sound a little bit like a saxophone. So this is it, the zaffoon. There is writing on this, and I don't know what that means. I think it's just some identification thing that they put on for their own benefit, because it doesn't mean anything to me, and it certainly doesn't tell me anything in terms of how to play the instrument. So there it is, a zaffoon, a Hawaiian saxophone. And if you remember the bamboo saxophone that I had with me on the last segment, then you can understand how this works a little. Next, I'm going to show you two Israeli instruments. I'll show them to you, then I'll show them to you one at a time. Now, this one here was mine all along, and it's made out of cedar, and it had, when I bought it, a really nice fragrant smell. You know, some woods have a very nice fragrant smell, and the top part of it is made out of plastic. It was made in Israel. It's an Israeli instrument. If I hold it to one side, you can see all the tone holes. It's like a regular recorder. Nothing unusual about it except that it is wood. I'm going to get into wood instruments and their advantages and their disadvantages during this segment, so I want to show a few of them to you first before I do that. Wood instruments are generally more expensive than instruments that are not made out of wood. Instruments that are made out of plastic, they're generally more expensive, and they have a little bit different quality of their tone. Their tone is usually lighter, not quite as loud, kind of a sweeter tone, and it's considered to be very, very valuable to have a wooden instrument. So this is my Gil Israeli, and just this week, in fact, just a matter of 3 or 4 days ago, I purchased this instrument, which is also an Israeli instrument. It's just a regular recorder. I also think that it's made out of cedar. Now, I can't tell for sure because it's got a heavy brown stain on it. I mean, it looks like a wooden recorder, a dark wooden recorder, but if I turn it around and you see the block, you can see that the wood is actually fairly light. And let me hold it over here. That light wood would be a little like cedar. It looks a little like cedar. And if I turn it around so you see the first of it, yeah, that's really good. You can see the labium, you can see the little lip of the labium up here and how it slants in, and then above that you see a little tiny squarish, or actually little rectangular dark area. That's where the window is, and you can see the marking Gil, that's the name. But you see the color of that wood is like cedar. And then if you look, and I'm going to hold this up just a little bit, oh, I'll keep it to the side, but we'll focus on the bottom of it, where you see some of those notes that have been kind of dug out, they've been carved out, and those notes are not covered with such a heavy stain. You can see that there are 2 holes, and they each have 2 holes. Yeah, that's perfect. There are 2 holes in each of those finger holes. This would be here for the D, if I were playing the D, and this would be for the low C. And each one has 2 holes in it, so it's almost like two notes in one. And what that does is helps you with your sharps and your flats. But you can see the coloring of the wood. That's natural wood underneath that. And the stain makes the whole instrument dark brown. But I'm sure that the instrument, I think, is made out of cedar. So that's a second Israeli instrument that I have. Let me show you some more wooden ones, and then I'll get into the qualities of the wood. I'll take the more decorative ones first. I think that's going to be easier for everybody. This happens to be a Moroccan instrument, and it's an end-blown flute made out of bamboo, hand-carved, and then it's decorated, and it has a glaze on it so it'll shine a little, and you can see what it's like. It's actually very nice. I put the identification on it to indicate that it's a Moroccan instrument. You can see that the wood shines a little, but it is bamboo, and you can see the decorations. It's got beautiful decorations. When I say it's end blown, I'm just going to move it like this a little. You can see, maybe I have the wrong end. Oops, there it is. Well, let me see, where's the top of it here? The mouthpiece is on this end. And if I hold it this way, you can see that there's a little area where you blow in, but the labium is on the back side. The labium is right here. So the place where you blow in is on the opposite side of the labium. This can be confusing when you get it. Well, no, it's not on the opposite side, but there's no clear mouthpiece. If I blow into it, I have to blow in between where you blow in and before my mouth hits the labium. It's a very nice instrument, but this is Moroccan and it's wood. This here is from India and it's wood. We're talking the country India. It's not a Native American flute. It's from India. And it's actually plays pretty well. I have several of these. Some of them play well and some don't. And it's interesting that all of the tone holes are one right above the other. So the mouthpiece, the labium's right here, and the place where I blow in is right there. And it plays, I think this one plays pretty well. It does not have a tone hole in the back, however, and that's its different. It starts to lose its pitch. Some of them don't play at all. And on the back side, there is a C. I'm not sure what that C represents. I think it's a specially made instrument for tourists, for something for them to take back with them when they've gone to India. It is in the key of C. Maybe that's what it indicates, but I can't be absolutely sure. So there's an Indian flute. This is also an Indian flute. This is an absolutely beautiful flute. If you look at the design, I've had it here before. Everything is flowers and leaves, and it's all hand carved, and it's all bamboo. So if I take and just hold it like this, and we get kind of a close-up of it, we can see that all of the tone holes are centers of flowers. Good, that's perfect. All of the tone holes are centers for flowers, and there are leaves around each one. So you have all of those holes being flowers with leaves, and everything else, if I turn it, will be either leaves of flowers, hand-carved, all the way around the instrument. It is bamboo. It's a beautiful instrument, and it plays pretty well. And this is a lot of hand carving. You've got to remember all of these things are carved by hand or painted by hand. Now this one is also wood, and there's no decorations on it at all. It's a Renaissance instrument, the Renaissance period in history. It was a special period in history, and it's a recorder and made in the Renaissance time. It's styled a little differently. It's made out of wood. It plays very well. So at any rate, this is a Renaissance instrument, and it's been stained. I don't know what the wood is. It's been stained, so it's like blonde, but a very, very nice instrument. It's made by LMI. They make student model instruments, and I'm really happy to have this. It's a very nice instrument. This is a Peruvian instrument, and I'm just going to hold it like this so you can see what the decorations are like. The Peruvian instruments are all, well, they're very highly decorated with bright colors. Let me just move this a little to the left and a little to the right. You can see that's the tone hole in the back of it. I can turn it around, and you get all of the decorations. Very nice instrument. It does play fairly well. It has a little problem in that it has developed a crack. But you see all the animals and the traditional decorations, and that's all hand done. The carving is all hand done. And also the tone holes are very low on the instrument. They're not up higher where the mouthpiece is. Most instruments, the holes are a lot higher. It does not have a tone hole in the back. But it's a nice instrument, and it plays some. I don't play it at all now. And the reason is because it has that crack. Bamboo instruments crack fairly easily. The ones that don't crack, especially made, they're thicker, they're more expensive. I would not expect this one here to crack. My saxophone won't crack. You know, the saxophone that I brought in last time won't crack. I showed you this before, bamboo, and I think it's from Peru, but I'm not sure. You can see the decorations on it. It's smaller, it plays in the key of D, plays pretty well. I've used it before. My sister and a friend bought it for me for Christmas, and they all said, oh, this is bad. We bought her an instrument that doesn't work. But it really does work, and you see the butterfly on the top, and then the tone holes down toward the bottom. But it's all very nicely decorated in flowers and leaves. Once again, all hand done. I have a collection of these instruments because I can play them, and I do love them. And let's see. I'm going to, let's see, well, let me get to talking to you about, I thought I might have something else here. Oh yes, my clay. This is a clay ocarina. I've had it here before. Very breakable, but it is made to be worn. And I'll hold it like that so you can get it. It's hand painted. It's made out of baked clay. It's another thing that some instruments in the Caribbean, they make instruments like this. It does play fairly well. If I tip it just a bit, you can see where you blow into it on the top. That would be like the top of a Fipple mouthpiece to a recorder. It's using the same principle. And this is the actual painting. It has a cross on it. I have worn it when I've done music seminars. I have worn it, but I don't wear it any other time, although I could. Then you have tone holes in the back of it. And it's because it's labeled, the painting doesn't go all the way around. And so you see all of these instruments that you can get from various places. Let me talk to you a little bit about, I probably won't finish with this, but let me talk to you about what the instruments are made of and what the disadvantages and advantages of wood are. The instruments are usually played, and I'm just talking about the woodwinds here because the brass instruments are all made out of brass. But flutes are made out of brass, so are penny whistles, like this, and I have any number of them. They're all brass. Saxophones, flutes, penny whistles, and older clarinets, really, really old clarinets were made out of metal. And in the plastics, you get recorders. Most of my recorders are actually made out of plastic, but you can get the melody flutes, like this one here, all made out of plastic. The song flutes, all made out of plastic, but you have clarinets. Most of my clarinets are made out of plastic. Song flutes, flutophones, and tonets, most of the instruments are made out of plastic. And plastic is very good. It's durable. If you take care of it, it lasts for years. The tone quality is good. The pitch is usually good, but they're not considered to be as expensive and as nice as wooden instruments whose tone is lighter and sweeter, and the instruments are a little heavier because of the wood and the thickness of the wood. They're considered to be more expensive. And also I want to mention that older instruments were also made out of hard rubber. And I know I have a clarinet that's made out of hard rubber. It looks like it's made out of plastic. The only way I would know the difference at all is that a lot of the instruments made out of plastic, they put like a little glaze on it, so it has a little shine to it, which is very pleasant to look at. The hard rubber doesn't have that. But before they were able to get the plastics as good as they are, and they are really excellent, and they used to use the hard rubber instead. And so we have those. And then I mentioned clay. And so by clarinets, you can get, I do have a wood clarinet. The wood clarinet, any clarinet that's made out of wood is very, very expensive. Mine came from France. I didn't bring it over because I just had too much to carry. But the thing is, with wood, you have to oil the instrument every so often. So every so often, every few weeks, I used to take and put little pieces of plastic underneath the pads that were flat so it wouldn't get oil on them, and all of the other keys were open anyway, so I didn't have to worry about that. And, excuse me, and I would put oil with a little device inside the instrument, and it would absorb. It might take 2 or 3 days to absorb, but that preserves the wood and prevents it from cracking. Now, I don't do that with these little ones because they're very inexpensive, some of them, and I was afraid it would change the color. But with the clarinet, it's such a major instrument and such an expensive instrument, you need to do whatever you need to do in order to preserve the wood. Some of them are glazed over and you can't put oil on them. It's not going to absorb. You should never, 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 never use alcohol to clean a wooden instrument or to disinfect a wooden instrument. A wooden instrument, the only thing you can use is a damp cloth to kind of wipe over it. And I know that's not very sanitary, but if you're the only one using the instrument and you don't let anyone else use it, you can get by with it. But if you use alcohol on a wooden instrument, what's going to happen is you're going to split the wood, and then the instrument is not good anyway. You won't be able to play with it. So basically, wooden instruments, they're more expensive, they're very nice, the tone is a little better, but they are very easily damaged. They're very easily, especially if they're thinly made like some of these are, they crack easily from use, so I don't use them very often, and you have to be very careful of them. The more expensive they are, the thicker the wood, the less apt they are to split, but that is an issue. So you need to also keep them in even room temperature. Don't expose them to over cold, don't expose them to overheat, and they're very nice. They play very nicely. So that's what we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to close it here, and we'll continue with this next time. Please join me then.